hugely difficult thing to try and work through for a lot of people because, of course, when someone dies, doing something constructive in their memory can sometimes help make sense of the loss in some sort of way. When Jeremy Daubeny lost both of his parents in a relatively short spell of time, he decided he wanted to honour them. He wanted to raise some money for research into the illnesses that had ended their lives. So it was then he found himself cycling around Britain and eating breakfasts in a different place every single day. In the last week, he's been working his way around the northeast, and I caught up with him when he was in Northumberland and asked him to share with me his story.
Back in 2017, my mum Claire was diagnosed with motor neurone disease, which is just this horrific condition where your body slowly degenerates. So all her muscles start to shut down. It started off with her left arm, and she was unable to move her fingers and, function as she used to. And then slowly she started to lose her balance, unable to walk, unable to eat or drink, turn over in bed. And it was just absolutely destructive as she slowly shut down. And later on that year, this is 2017, my dad Giles was diagnosed with a glioblastoma brain tumour, which is essentially a grade 4 brain tumour, a 1-year death sentence, if you like. So my dad passed away the following September 2018, and my mum passed away in 2019, May 2019, that is. And I think this trip is essentially in aid of two causes very close to my heart, the Motor Neurone Disease Association and the Brain Tumour Charity. So both of them are leading the research in the UK in terms of trying to find a cure and make sure no one has to suffer quite like my parents did again. And I've decided to undertake a bit of a 7-week cycling challenge in aid of the two charities and raise as much awareness and funds, of course, as possible for them.
Because you're 19 now, Jeremy, so you were a young teenager when all of this happened. And to try and process what's going on, both really very cruel diseases, as a young boy, I can't even begin to think what was happening with you. You're growing up, you're seeing your mum become really, very ill, your dad become very poorly. It's just tragic, absolutely tragic. And you've made it quite open about this trip and a chance for you really to try and process losing your parents and, as you say, to raise the money and the awareness. Is that helping? Is it helping with your grief doing this trip?
I think definitely. When it all happened initially, I just shut down for a bit. I didn't process it at all. I sort of lived a double life. At school, I was okay. At home, I was struggling. And I think because we're so permanently stimulated always, it's very easy just to try to avoid even thinking about your grief. And being on a bike, there isn't quite as much stimulation as you might have at home. So just, for example, bluebells are something on this trip that have brought back so many memories of these walks we used to do as a family through Bluebell Woods. And every time I saw them at the start of the trip, I'd have to pull over and have a bit of a cry. And it wasn't a sobbing, this is horrific, I'm never going to get through this, but it was a happy reminiscing. And I think that's been brilliant during this trip in terms of me getting in touch with my grief.
Now, you're hoping to raise stacks of money. So it's the Brain Tumour Charity and the MND Association, so that's motor neurone disease. And your initial target was £2,500. But you have smashed that target time and time again. Where are you currently at?
So just over 19 grand now. So it's been quite a response.
That is incredible. And you're on the search while you do this 7-week challenge, and it is the best challenge I've ever heard. The plan to find Britain's best breakfast. So the Tour de Full English is a cracking way to try and, devour some of the fine foods that we have around the whole of Britain. But why breakfast in particular? What is it, that meal, that makes you want to go and find the best one?
So I was trying to think, how could I make this challenge nice and British, and what is something that we do very well? And naturally, we do a pretty good breakfast. So at the moment, I'm cycling for 7 weeks and trying to find Britain's best breakfast, whether it be a sort of greasy spoon fry-up or a fancy full English. I'm just trying to see who does it best, and we've got a pretty comprehensive rating system, and hopefully by the end of this challenge, I'll be able to answer the question of where this nation's best breakfast truly is.
So if you're doing this particular sort of ranking system, how does that work? What makes the perfect breakfast? What's going to get top marks?
So if it's setting itself as a full English, I want to see all the components of the full English clearly presented. And then also portion size need to be well fed. The egg deserves its own category as such a core component of the breakfast. So, I want to see a perfectly cooked egg, lovely runny yolk. It needs to be a warm atmosphere, perhaps good views, lovely staff. It's all about that.
And you're doing very well so far. And I want to find out how you're actually doing this. Are you staying in B&Bs or camping, or what's the deal here? How does it work?
So I've got everything attached to my bike, all my camping gear. I've got my tent, sleeping bag and so on. It's worked out about 50-50 really. So sometimes I've been staying with friends of friends, sometimes I've been camping. Last night, for example, I was camping. I think when I get to Scotland, there's going to be a lot more wild camping and I'll be a bit more on my own as I have less contacts up there.
I know you're heading up towards Northumberland now, and as you say, if you're having a great breakfast and you've got a wonderful sea view, we've got some marvellous sea views right along our coast here in the northeast. You must be enjoying the time heading through the northeast, because a lot of the area, is it safe to say we're a little flat?
Yes, I mean, when you've been for, Pembrokeshire and Snowdonia, Northumberland is a bit of a luxury, but yeah, the views are absolutely stunning. I'm heading on to Holy Island, Lindisfarne later today, so I'm really excited to see that.
Have you checked the tide time so you don't get stuck?
Yeah, I'll be okay. I'll get a good couple of hours on the island.
So how far have you got to go then before you finish your journey?
Well, again, the challenge isn't necessarily distance. The challenge is days. So my fitness is improving on the road, luckily. I'm not entirely sure where I'll finish, but today is day 33 of 49, so 16 more days to go, and heading essentially Edinburgh, Glasgow, then around the west coast of Scotland. So I'll see where I end up when the 7 weeks finishes.
Well, it's wonderful to speak to you, and in 16 days' time I want to find out where we fare in the northeast when it comes to that full English breakfast. Is that a deal, Jeremy?
Oh, brilliant stuff. Thanks a million.
And so far, on a scale, where would you say your top breakfast has been?
So far, there's a little cafe down in a village called Treffin on the Pembrokeshire coast. Forgive me if there's any Welsh listeners here, but I think it's pronounced Café i Ragna.
Well, you haven't had one here in the northeast yet, dear, so you fill your boots today and I'm sure you'll change your mind. Thank you, Jeremy. It's good to speak to you.
Alrighty, thank you. Take care.
Well, you can check out Jeremy's adventures on Instagram and Facebook. You type in Tour de Full English. And if you want to donate, you can find him at virginmoneygiving.com/Tour de Full English.